You don't have to throw a punch to destroy someone. You don't have to scream, argue, or waste your breath. The strongest people in the world, the ones who win every time, don't fight with fists. They fight with strategy. They fight with silence. They fight by making sure their enemies choke on their own weakness while they rise higher and higher. Think about it. What does your enemy really want from you? They want your reaction. They want to see you break, to see you lose control, to see you drag down to their level. The moment you give them that, you've already lost. But if you don't, if you stay calm, focused, and in control, you take away their power. The truth is, your enemies don't need you to destroy them. They'll destroy themselves with their jealousy, their bitterness, and their obsession with you. Your job is to make sure you never step into the mud with them. You rise above it. You let them watch. You let them burn. So today, I'm going to give you 10 ways to destroy your enemy without ever laying a hand on them. 10 ways to walk into any room, any situation, any conflict, and come out untouchable. And once you understand these, you'll never waste your energy on fighting battles that don't matter. You'll win wars without ever firing a shot. Most people hear the word enemy, and their mind instantly jumps to someone who hates them, someone who wants to see them fail, someone standing in the way of their success. But let me tell you something that most never understand. Your enemy is not always wearing a mask of anger, and they're not always standing in front of you with their arms crossed. Sometimes your enemy smiles at you. Sometimes your enemy shakes your hand. Sometimes your enemy lives inside of you. And unless you shift your definition of what an enemy truly is, you'll waste your time fighting the wrong battles and protecting yourself from the wrong threats. An enemy is anyone or anything that tries to stop you from becoming the person you are meant to be. That means, yes, sometimes it's a person, a colleague who sabotages you at work, a so-called friend who secretly envies you and celebrates your failures, a partner who manipulates you, keeping you small so they can feel big. These people are obvious enemies, but they're not the only ones. Because your greatest enemy often doesn't live outside of you. It lives inside of you. It's the self-doubt that whispers you're not good enough. It's the laziness that tells you it's okay to wait until tomorrow. It's the fear that freezes you every time opportunity knocks. It's that little voice that convinces you to stay comfortable, to stay safe, to stay average. That voice has destroyed more dreams than any outside force ever could. You see, when you define your enemy only as that person who hates me, you miss the much bigger picture. The truth is, many of the enemies you think you have aren't even worth your energy. Someone bad-mouthing you behind your back? That's not your enemy. That's noise. Someone jealous of you. Someone trying to compete with you while you're not even in the same league? That's not your enemy. That's their problem. When you shift your definition of enemy, you stop wasting time trying to prove people wrong. You stop chasing validation. You stop giving attention to people who don't deserve it. Instead, you realize the real battle is not with them, it's with yourself. But let's not ignore the external enemies completely. They exist, and they're real. There are people who would rather see you fail than succeed. There are people who hate the fact that you're trying, that you're growing, that you're stepping into a version of yourself that makes them uncomfortable. These people are enemies, not because they can actually stop you, but because they want to. But here's the secret. You don't need to fight them. You don't need to argue. You don't need to prove anything. When you shift your definition of what an enemy really is, you understand that the best way to destroy them is to keep moving forward, unbothered, unaffected, untouchable, because nothing crushes an enemy more than seeing you live well, rise high, and never acknowledge their existence. Now let's go deeper. An enemy isn't just people, and it isn't just your inner doubts. Sometimes your enemy is the environment you've placed yourself in. The toxic circle of friends who laugh at ambition, the workplace culture that celebrates mediocrity instead of excellence, the relationship where you're expected to shrink so someone else can shine. These are enemies disguised as normal life. And if you don't have the courage to call them what they are, you'll let them drain you slowly until there's nothing left. Shifting your definition of enemy means you stop tolerating what drains your energy, what kills your focus, what makes you forget who you are. So how do you truly destroy your enemy without fighting them? First, you must be able to see them for what they are. If you don't recognize that doubt, fear, procrastination, toxic environments, and even your own comfort zone are enemies, then you'll never win. You'll spend your whole life shadowboxing people who don't matter, while the real enemy lives quietly inside of you. But once you see it, once you recognize it, you can set boundaries. You can outgrow environments. You can silence that inner voice with discipline and consistency. You can take away the power of any external enemy by refusing to feed them with your attention. The strongest people in history didn't waste time fighting every insult, every critic, every jealous rival. They understood something vital. You cannot be at war with every person who doesn't like you. You cannot win if you're swinging at shadows. Instead, you shift your definition of enemy and recognize that the true war is always fought in the mind, in the habits, in the choices you make daily. When you conquer yourself, your doubts, your fears, your laziness, you've already destroyed the greatest enemy you'll ever face. And once you've done that, no outside force can touch you. So let me leave you with this truth. Your enemy is not always the one standing across from you. Sometimes it's the one standing in your shoes. Sometimes it's the environment you've accepted as good enough. Sometimes it's the comfort zone that feels safe but is slowly killing your ambition. Destroying your enemy without fighting them begins with redefining who the enemy actually is. Once you do that, you'll realize most battles don't require your fists, your voice, or even your anger. They only require you to keep growing, to keep rising, to keep winning. And that is the kind of destruction no enemy can recover from. Destruction without fighting is not about shouting louder than your enemy. It's not about proving them wrong with arguments or trading blows in a battle of egos. True destruction, the kind that leaves your enemies helpless, is about outclassing them so completely that they have no choice but to watch you rise while they remain stuck where they are. It is domination without conflict. It is the art of winning without lifting a finger against anyone. Because when you outclass someone, you don't just defeat them, you erase the need for the fight altogether. Think about this. When someone insults you, what do they really want? They want your attention. They want your reaction. They want you to stoop down to their level and validate their existence by engaging with them. But the moment you ignore them and instead focus on elevating yourself, they're left powerless. Your progress becomes the insult they cannot recover from. Your growth becomes the reminder of their stagnation. That's how you destroy someone without ever fighting them. You show them through your actions that you are untouchable. Outclassing begins with self-control. You never let your emotions dictate your response. The loudest person in the room is never the strongest. The quiet one who owns themselves, who doesn't flinch, who doesn't get baited, that's the one who dominates. When your enemy tries to provoke you and you respond with calm composure, you've already won. You show them that they cannot reach you. You show them that their words are as light as air, meaningless against your solid foundation. That kind of silence isn't weakness. It's a weapon. It humiliates your enemy without you ever raising your voice. But outclassing isn't just about silence. It's about living at a higher standard. When someone lies about you, don't argue. Let your integrity and your results speak louder than their words. When someone competes with you, don't engage in petty rivalries. Keep your eyes on your mission and climb so high they can't even see the path you're on. The higher you rise, the smaller their world becomes. The more disciplined you become, the weaker their attempts to shake you will feel. Outclassing is about consistently living at a level your enemies can't touch. Look at history. The most powerful leaders didn't crush their enemies by throwing punches. They crushed them by becoming so great, so focused, so disciplined that their enemies became irrelevant. They refused to waste energy on small battles because their eyes were fixed on the bigger war, the war to fulfill their purpose, to live a life of impact, to reach a level where no rival could drag them down. That's what you must do. Outclassing your enemy means refusing to be dragged into the mud because you're too busy building empires. Imagine this in your own life. A coworker is jealous, always trying to undermine you. If you argue with them, if you try to expose them, you're playing their game. But if you simply continue performing at your best, delivering results, rising in competence, they cannot stop you. Their jealousy eats them alive while you keep climbing. That's destruction without fighting. Or imagine someone spreading rumors about you. Do you waste energy trying to clear your name to every single person? No, you outclass them by living in such a way that those rumors collapse under the weight of your actions. People eventually see the truth. Your life speaks louder than their lie. Outclassing is also about timing and patience. You don't need instant revenge. You don't need to rush to prove yourself. You understand that success is the loudest response you can ever give. The more you grow, the more your enemies shrink. Their energy is wasted on trying to drag you down, while your energy is invested in building yourself up. Over time, the gap between you and them becomes so wide that it feels like different worlds. That's the kind of destruction no enemy can recover from. They are defeated not by what you did to them, but by what you refuse to let them do to you. But here's the key. Outclassing is not about arrogance. It's not about rubbing your success in someone's face or trying to show off. That's still engaging with them, still acknowledging them. Outclassing is about living so far above the noise that their attempts to reach you feel laughable. It's about making yourself untouchable by focusing so deeply on your growth, your discipline, and your mission that no insult, no lie, no attack can derail you. You become bulletproof not because you fight, but because you refuse to step onto their battlefield in the first place. Your enemy wants a fight. They want you angry, distracted, and emotional. The best destruction is giving them none of it. You deny them the reaction they crave, and in doing so, you suffocate their power. That's why destruction without fighting is about class. It's about rising above the petty games and proving through your strength that they are not even worthy of your attention. And the beauty of it is this: when you master the art of outclassing, you don't just destroy your enemies, you inspire others. People see your control, your focus, your results, and they want to follow your lead. You win battles without even stepping into the arena. So remember this: the most powerful way to destroy your enemy is not to beat them in combat, not to humiliate them with words, not to prove them wrong in the moment. The most powerful way to destroy your enemy is to outclass them, live at a higher level, move with discipline, rise so far beyond their reach that they collapse under their own weakness. That is destruction without fighting. That is how you win wars without ever throwing a punch. Restraint is one of the greatest powers you will ever hold in your life. It may not look like it in the moment because restraint doesn't shout, it doesn't explode, it doesn't demand attention. But it's exactly that quiet power, that ability to control yourself when everything in you wants to react, that earns you more respect than any outburst ever could. Think about it. Anyone can lash out when provoked. Anyone can lose their temper, argue, throw insults, or even throw punches. That doesn't take strength. That's easy. Real strength is being capable of responding, but choosing not to. Real strength is holding yourself back, not because you're weak, but because you're above it. When you practice restraint, you send a message: I am in control. Not you. Not the situation. Not my emotions. Me. And that message commands respect, whether from friends, enemies, or strangers. Because people instinctively respect those who can remain calm under pressure. We admire the leader who doesn't panic when chaos erupts. We follow the man who keeps his composure when he's tested. And we fear the opponent who doesn't get rattled, no matter what we throw at him. Restraint is the invisible armor that makes you untouchable. Now, let's break this down. Imagine someone insults you directly to your face. They want a reaction. They want you to snap, because the moment you do, they've succeeded. They've pulled you down to their level. But what if you look them in the eye and remain unbothered? What if you let their words hang in the air like smoke and simply move on? That silence hits harder than any insult you could throw back. That silence says you are not worth my energy. And that silence will haunt them far longer than your words ever could. That is respect through restraint. Restraint is also about timing. It's not that you never respond, it's that you don't respond on impulse. You wait. You choose your moment. You decide whether the battle is even worth fighting. And most of the time it isn't. Most of the time it's a trap. Your enemy wants you distracted, off balance, and consumed with proving yourself. But restraint frees you from that trap. It keeps you focused on what actually matters. Instead of wasting energy proving them wrong, you invest that energy into your growth, your mission, your goals. And over time, that progress will prove them wrong far louder than any argument ever could. Let me give you a picture. Two men are in a heated argument. One is red-faced, shouting, throwing insults, waving his hands wildly. The other stands calm, collected, almost indifferent. Who looks stronger? Who looks like he's in control? It's the one who refuses to lose his composure. The man who is screaming may feel powerful in the moment, but everyone watching knows he's weak because he's lost control of himself. The man who holds back, who stays grounded, that's the man people will remember. That's the man they'll respect. Restraint doesn't just protect you from looking weak, it protects your reputation. When you lash out in anger, when you speak without thinking, when you react emotionally, you often regret it later. But you can never fully take back words once spoken or actions once taken. Restraint buys you space, space to think, space to choose wisely, space to respond with power rather than weakness. In a world where people are constantly triggered, constantly reacting, constantly losing themselves over the smallest things, restraint sets you apart as rare, and rarity is always respected. But here's what makes restraint even more powerful. It creates mystery. People can't figure you out when you don't react. They don't know what you're thinking, what you're planning, or what you might do next. That uncertainty makes people tread carefully around you. They know you're not impulsive, so when you do act, they know it's deliberate, it's calculated, and it carries weight. Your silence becomes louder than their noise. Your calmness becomes more intimidating than their chaos. Restraint doesn't mean you're passive. It doesn't mean you're letting people walk over you. It means you know how to pick your battles. It means you don't waste bullets on small fights when you're preparing for the war that really matters. It means you let others wear themselves out with emotion while you conserve your strength for the moments that count. And when you finally decide to act, your actions carry far more impact because they're rare, they're intentional, and they're backed by thought instead of impulse. Respect through restraint also applies to relationships. Think about arguments with loved ones, with a partner, with family. The easy path is to say the cruel thing in the heat of the moment, to snap back with words you'll regret. But restraint allows you to hold back, to protect not just yourself, but the relationship. People may not say it, but they always remember. When you showed restraint, when you chose peace over escalation, when you demonstrated maturity instead of immaturity, that earns you respect in ways that shouting never could. And in leadership, restraint is indispensable. Nobody wants to follow a leader who loses his cool at every setback, who panics at the first sign of difficulty, who lashes out at the smallest mistake. People respect the leader who stays calm under pressure, who doesn't react emotionally, who chooses his words and actions carefully. That leader inspires confidence, loyalty, and trust. Restraint in leadership doesn't just earn respect, it builds influence. Now ask yourself this: who is really stronger? The man who can lift the heaviest weight in the gym, or the man who can hold his tongue when provoked? The man who can fight 5 enemies with his fists, Or the man who can stand surrounded by insults, pressure, and betrayal and still not lose control of himself? The truth is, the world always respects the man who can master himself first. Restraint is self-mastery, and without self-mastery, you'll always be vulnerable, no matter how strong you think you are. Restraint is not weakness. Restraint is not fear. Restraint is not surrender. Restraint is proof that you are bigger than the moment, bigger than the insult, bigger than the trap being laid for you. It is proof that you don't need to win every small battle because you're too focused on winning the war. And when you practice restraint consistently, you build a reputation as someone who cannot be shaken, someone who cannot be manipulated, someone who cannot be provoked into weakness. That is respect. That is power. So remember this. The next time someone tries to pull you into their chaos, the next time you feel the fire rise inside you to react, to lash out, to prove yourself, pause, take a breath, hold back, because in that moment of restraint, you show the world who truly holds the power. And the one who holds the power will always earn the respect. The most devastating way to destroy an enemy without ever lifting a hand is to rise so high that they cannot reach you. When you weaponize growth and success, you make your very existence a reminder of their failure to stop you. Every achievement, every milestone, every ounce of progress you make is a silent but thunderous declaration. You couldn't hold me down. You couldn't stop me. You couldn't break me. That kind of power crushes an enemy far deeper than insults or fists ever could. Because while wounds heal, envy and humiliation linger forever. Success is the most elegant form of revenge. But here's the thing, it's not about chasing success just to prove them wrong. If that's your only reason, you'll burn out. No. You pursue growth because it builds you, because it transforms you, because it makes you untouchable. And in that process, as a natural consequence, those who wished you harm, those who doubted you, those who plotted against you, have no choice but to watch. They must sit there powerless as you create a life that leaves them choking on their own bitterness. That's what it means to weaponize growth. Think about it. If you spend your time plotting revenge, scheming to get even, engaging in petty fights, you're still playing on their level. You're still stuck in their orbit. They're still controlling your time, your energy, and your focus. But the moment you redirect that energy toward yourself, toward learning, discipline, mastery, and achievement, you rip away their power over you. You stop being consumed by them and start building something so great that they disappear in comparison. That is how you truly destroy an enemy without touching them. Growth is undeniable. You can argue with someone's words. You can dismiss someone's opinions. You can even deny their presence. But you cannot ignore results. When you grow in skill, in wealth, in influence, in character, the evidence is right there. People see it. People feel it. And most importantly, your enemies see it. Every step forward you take is a reminder to them that they failed to break you. Every victory is a mirror that reflects their own lack of progress. They may never admit it out loud, but inside it eats them alive. This is why some of the most successful people in history didn't waste time fighting their enemies directly. They focused on building. They focused on becoming. They focused on proving through results, not words. And that's why the people who opposed them, mocked them, or tried to stand in their way eventually faded into obscurity. No one remembers the critics, but everyone remembers the builders. No one remembers the hecklers, but everyone remembers the achievers. Growth makes your enemies irrelevant. And let's go deeper. Growth is not just external, it's internal. When you choose to keep improving, you develop mental toughness, emotional intelligence, and resilience. You begin to operate on a higher level of discipline and clarity. And that internal transformation is what really separates you from your enemies. Because enemies thrive on dragging you down into emotional chaos, on provoking you, on keeping you small. But when you weaponize growth, you refuse to play small. You elevate, you outgrow them, not just in success, but in mindset. And once you outgrow them, they can no longer touch you. Think about how frustrating that is for someone who hates you. They want you to fail. They want you to stay stuck. They want you to keep reacting to them, proving them right. But instead, you show up every day becoming better, stronger, sharper. You don't even acknowledge them because you're too focused on climbing higher. That is pure destruction without ever lifting a finger. It's like forcing them to watch you build a castle while they're still living in a tent. The comparison itself is a punishment. The beauty of weaponizing growth and success is that it never requires you to lower yourself. You don't need to slander them. You don't need to retaliate. You don't need to waste time on them at all. All you need to do is keep pushing forward, keep creating, keep leveling up. Your victories become your weapons. Your growth becomes your armor. And your success becomes the executioner of their ego. But remember, growth doesn't happen overnight. This is not a short game. It's a long game. It's choosing to work on yourself day after day while others waste time gossiping, complaining, or obsessing over you. It's choosing to put in the hours while they sleep. It's choosing to invest in your mind, your skills, your body, your future while they stagnate. And when the years pass, the difference between you and them will be so massive that there won't even be a comparison anymore. They will have destroyed themselves through their own inaction, and you will have destroyed them through your relentless growth. And here's the best part. When you weaponize growth, you don't just defeat enemies, you inspire allies. People respect those who rise above drama, who don't waste energy on petty fights, who keep building despite obstacles. They admire the man who turns hate into fuel, who turns envy into motivation, who turns every obstacle into a stepping stone. That's the kind of person people want to follow, to support, to stand beside. So in destroying your enemies through success, you also gain influence, respect, and loyalty from those who see your journey. Weaponizing growth is about making your life a living answer, not through shouting, not through fighting, but through results. Through undeniable evidence, through excellence. It's about waking up every day with the mindset, the best way to silence doubt, the best way to crush envy, the best way to destroy opposition is to keep winning. Because in the end, nothing hits harder than undeniable success. So let your enemies talk. Let them plot. Let them gossip. Let them mock. You don't need to respond. You don't need to prove them wrong with words. You'll prove them wrong with results. You'll prove them wrong with the man you become. Because the greatest destruction is not when you break someone down. It's when you rise so high that they realize they were never even close to your level. That's the real victory. That's the power of weaponizing growth and success. The truth about destroying your enemies without ever touching them lies in understanding one simple principle. The long game always wins. People who want to see you fall, people who secretly or openly hope for your failure, live in the short game. They want instant results. They want immediate gratification. They look for quick wins, petty victories, and emotional reactions. They thrive on getting you to lose your temper, to stumble, to quit. But here's where you outplay them. You don't play their game. You play the long game. And the long game is patience, discipline, and consistency, stacked day after day, until your enemies realize they were never competing with you in the first place. When you commit to the long game, you stop chasing applause, attention, or quick validation. You don't need to respond to every insult, every jab, every moment of disrespect, because you know the truth. Your results over time will speak louder than anything you could ever say. Your life becomes your statement. Your discipline becomes your defense. Your growth becomes your revenge. And nothing destroys an enemy more effectively than watching you win in the long run, while their short-term games crumble into nothing. Think about it. The long game is about endurance. It's about building habits that compound over years while everyone else burns themselves out chasing shortcuts. Most people give up after a few weeks, a few months, maybe a year, but not you. You keep going. You stay consistent. You stay locked in. That's why the long game is so devastating to your enemies. They cannot match it. They might outshine you for a moment. They might win a temporary round. But when the dust settles, when time passes, it's the one who never quit. The one who stayed steady. The one who had patience. Who ends up on top. Your enemies will try to bait you into reacting quickly. They want to see you impulsive. They want you emotional. They want you distracted. But the long game demands the opposite. It demands that you hold your ground. That you don't let short-term noise shake your long-term mission. Every time you refuse to react, every time you stay calm, every time you stay focused, you're playing a game they cannot win. Because enemies feed off immediate chaos. They starve when you stay steady. The beauty of the long game is that it transforms you into someone unshakable. While everyone else burns out, you're still there, grinding. While others fall apart, you're still standing. And over time, people notice. Respect follows those who endure. Influence grows for those who stay consistent. Opportunities open for those who prove they can last. And your enemies? They disappear. Not because you fought them, but because time exposed their weakness. They destroyed themselves trying to win quickly, while you secured victory permanently. Patience is your sharpest weapon. In the long game, you learn to let people underestimate you. Let them laugh. Let them doubt. Let them say you'll never make it. Every single insult becomes fuel. Every doubt becomes motivation. And every delay becomes training. Because when the breakthrough comes, and it always does, it's undeniable. And when that moment arrives, your enemies will look back and realize they wasted their energy trying to beat someone who was never rushing. They were sprinting. You were running a marathon. And in life, the marathon runner always wins. The long game also teaches you the power of delayed gratification. It means sacrificing comfort now for strength later. It means being willing to do the boring work day after day, week after week, while others are looking for the shortcut. Your enemy might gloat in the short term. They might get a small win. But you're building something far more powerful. A foundation, a kingdom, a legacy. And when that foundation is complete, nothing and no one can shake it. Here's the irony. Your enemies will often destroy themselves by refusing to play the long game. They'll burn bridges in their rush for quick wins. They'll cut corners and cheat their way to temporary victories. They'll exhaust themselves chasing validation. And all the while, you're stacking your bricks, building your empire piece by piece. And by the time they realize what you've been building, it's too late. The long game is over, and you've won without ever having to throw a punch. And let's not forget, the long game humbles you. It strips away ego, because ego wants fast results. Ego wants instant recognition. The long game teaches you to trust the process instead of demanding immediate payoffs. And when you learn that, you become unshakable. Your enemies can't manipulate you. They can't rush you. They can't drag you into their drama. They'll try to lure you into reacting, but you'll see it for what it is. Noise. And noise cannot stop someone who is locked into a long-term vision. The most powerful revenge is longevity. It's waking up 10 years from now still strong, still disciplined, still rising while your enemies have long disappeared. It's looking back and realizing you didn't need to fight them because time fought them for you. Time is ruthless. It exposes laziness. It punishes inconsistency. It destroys arrogance, and it rewards patience, effort, and consistency. The long game is simply aligning yourself with time and letting time destroy your enemies on your behalf. So here's the mindset. Never rush to destroy. Never rush to prove. Never rush to react. Play the long game. Protect your mission. Build every single day, even when no one is watching. Even when it feels slow. Even when it feels like nothing is happening. Because the day will come when all those quiet hours, all those steady steps, all those patient sacrifices erupt into undeniable success. And in that moment, you won't need to say a word. Your life will speak for itself. The long game always wins because it cannot be faked. Anyone can pretend to be strong for a week. Anyone can fake discipline for a month. But years of consistency, years of endurance, years of growth, that's rare, that's unbreakable. And that's why the long game doesn't just destroy your enemies, it erases them from history. So let them fight for attention. Let them chase shortcuts. Let them scramble for quick wins. You stay patient. You stay steady. You stay locked into your mission. Because the long game always wins. And when it does, your enemies will realize they were never in the same league as you. They were sprinting, and you were building a legacy. At the end of the day, destroying your enemy without ever lifting a finger isn't about them. It's about you. It's about the kind of man or woman you choose to be. You don't waste energy on petty battles. You don't fall into traps. You don't lower yourself to their level. Instead, you rise, you outthink, outgrow, and outlast. That's the art of true power. The real victory is not in crushing someone else. It's in building yourself so unshakable, so undeniable, that their existence no longer matters. When you control your emotions, when you outclass them with discipline, when you protect your purpose and live the long game, you don't just win, you erase the need to fight. Because your success, your composure, your very presence becomes the defeat they can't recover from. So stop asking, how do I beat them? And start asking, how do I build me? Because when you become disciplined, focused, and relentless, you don't just destroy enemies, you make enemies irrelevant. That's how the strongest people operate. They don't fight for power. They embody it. And when you embody it, your enemies destroy themselves in the shadow of your growth. Remember this. Silence is powerful. Restraint is powerful. Patience is powerful. Growth is powerful. And when you master these weapons, you will never have to fight your enemies because you'll already have